Right.
So, hi everybody. Welcome to the latest collaboration between myself, Joe Dale, and Philippa Kruger for EP. It's lovely to see so many people joining us today. Can you just let us know in the chat if you can hear everybody? You can hear me talking right now. It'd be really good. We've had a few issues, but I'm sure it'll be fine. But if you could let us know, that would be great. Or maybe Philippa, could you maybe just ask in the chat if while I'm speaking, if that's all right?
Yes, yeah, sure. So either in the probably in the Q&A, if you could let us know, or the group chat, that would be great. And I'll pop a message in there as well.
Lovely. So I'm joined this evening with or this morning, should I say, for me in the UK, but in the evening for those people in Australasia. I'm joined today with the lovely Philippa Kruger from EP. And this particular session, we're going to be looking at, I can see that Paul can hear us. Phew, that's good. We're looking forward to showing you different ways in which EP can help with online assessment. So this is obviously a crucial issue at the moment. We're all in different circumstances. We might be teaching face-to-face, which is what's happening in the UK. We might be teaching remotely, or we might be doing a hybrid whereby we're teaching some face-to-face and some students accessing the lesson at home, so in a sort of like a hybrid model. So crazy times, I know, but I'm sure this webinar will be a very, very useful way of giving you some insights and ideas on how we can use EP in order to help with the situation, particularly in relation to assessment. And Philippa is going to go through all the different ways in which we can do that, not just for reading and writing, but also for speaking and listening as well. So today's date is the 29th of October, 2020, both in the UK and in Australasia, which is great. And if it's okay, I'm going to start off with a little presentation. Philippa, if you could bring that up on the screen, if that's all right. And then I will also be monitoring the Q&A. And we have the lovely Kelly as well in the room, who's going to be looking at the Q&A as well at the same time. So I'm sure she'll be amazing in answering any questions. And if there's anything that I can help with as well, or Philippa can help with as well, we'll just jump in and go for it. So I'm going to speak for a few minutes now during the presentation, just give you some context about what UK language teachers are doing in relation to assessment and in our COVID-safe classrooms. And it'd be lovely to see from everyone in the Q&A if you're having similar experiences as well. It'd be fantastic. Okay, so if we could go on to the first slide, if that's okay. So on to the next one.
Yep.
Thank you.
It will be there, Joe. It's just
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
So what you're going to see in a minute, you're going to see a classroom, a sort of a typical classroom supposedly at the moment, with a yellow and black banner down the front. So in other words, a clear barrier between the teacher's desk and all the students' desks. So the idea behind that is the suggestion that it's no longer possible, if you're teaching face-to-face in lots and lots of schools, for you as the teacher to be walking around the desks. Therefore, if that's the case, how do you do your normal activities? How do you give feedback? How do you assess if you can't see the students' work unless you're walking around? So one solution to that, if you're in a face-to-face classroom, is either for all the students to have their own device and they're all accessing the same platform, or you've got children in the classroom and children at home accessing the same platform at the same time, and you're able to push tasks to everyone at the same time. Or the children could be doing work in an exercise book, and then they could take a photograph on their device and upload it to an online platform, and then the teacher could then mark it from there. So that's the idea of that first slide. I don't know if it's possible to move on to the next one, Philippa, or if I can do this manually. Ah, perfect.
Yeah,
okay.
Yep.
That's all good. Thank you. So hopefully you did see that picture a moment ago, but that was from Tom Sherrington, also known as Teacher Head on Twitter. And he has a fantastic blog all around contemporary ideas to do with education. He's not a languages person, but I think that picture is very, very relevant. And all his ideas are evidence-based, which is very much flavour of the month, particularly in the UK, if not around the world. Now, in this next slide, I would imagine that Jo from Alice Smith is probably with us tonight as well. She said she was going to be coming on Twitter, so that's fantastic. So on the right-hand side, this picture here, you've got her school, Alice Smith School in Malaysia, and you can probably see there are perspex barriers on the tables there to presumably to reduce the amount of potential contamination that the children can pass on to each other through droplets. And then on the left-hand side, likewise, you've also got perspex barriers there. This is for a teacher training session in Leicester in the UK. So again, how do we do assessment in these sorts of environments? It's very challenging. But I think tonight you can have some fantastic solutions from Philippa on how EP can help bridge that issue. Okay, if we go on to the next slide, please, that'd be lovely. So is this the new normal languages classroom? Exactly. So one way in which you could have feedback is if the children all have their own mini whiteboards. So this is something that was being discussed by the language community in the UK, also known as the MFL Twitterati. If you haven't heard of the MFL Twitterati before, it's just MFL TWITTERATI, MFL Twitterati. And if you search for that hashtag for, say, 10 minutes a day while you're having a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, then you will find some amazing ideas, particularly at the moment around COVID-safe ideas or ideas around pedagogy or good tech tools in order to do what you're trying to do in the classroom. So I asked the MFL Twitterati for ideas around using mini whiteboards because I thought that would be a fantastic way of giving feedback for assessment. The teacher asks a question and all the children just hold up their mini whiteboards. And as you can see on the screen, we've got a few people giving their replies. So you can see you've got, for example, Langnut saying all students have to bring their own in, which is great as long as they don't forget them, because you can't really have spare ones that you then give out, because the whole point is we don't want cross-contamination. As you can see, Katie Lockett saying our pupils bring their own. It's part of their equipment. I love this. They get a strike if they forget. Not a COVID thing, just our normal thing at our school. There we are. Nice and strict. Okay. My school has been fab. Wouldn't it be lovely if all schools were like this? All students are issued with a wallet containing equipment, glue, scissors, whiteboard, pen, board wiper, plus biros. Amazing. I think we should all go and teach in Jane Bevan's school. And then last but not least, students have their own equipment. They're not allowed to share equipment, mini whiteboard in planner. So I don't know if people in the chat, if you have a mini whiteboard in your planner, but that's a nice solution. And then again, the children have got to have their pen with them. You've got to make sure the pen hasn't run out, that they haven't left the top off and all those lovely things that they do. But there we are. If we could go on to the next slide, please, Philippa, that'd be lovely. So those are a few ideas there about mini whiteboards. This was a great question I saw that came up from Steph from SRA_Keiki. As you can see, question for the MFL Twitterati: how has your marking changed now that we're in this pandemic? And this is the key question really for today's webinar. Looking for ways that include the least contact possible with books for now and going forwards. Absolutely. If you go on to the next slide, please, Philippa. So you'll see in the next one that some schools are, for example, wearing gloves when they are doing their marking, that they're leaving the books for 48 to 72 hours. It'd be lovely to see if you've had a similar experience, if you want to put that in the Q&A. It's just, yeah, it seems a crazy situation whereby you're having to wait 48 to 72 hours, or you're having to wear gloves. Some students are not, some teachers are not allowed to do any marking at all in books. Everything is done online. So from that point of view, as you can see, some people have written, set and mark work using an online platform, as we were doing during lockdown. Another idea, take a picture of students' work and upload it to an online platform where it can be annotated. I saw that in another webinar I was in recently, whereby that's exactly what the teacher was doing. The teacher wasn't moving at all around the classroom. The students were doing the work. They were writing in their books. They were adding in post-it notes for some like assessment for learning activities. And then the children were taking photos of their work. Apparently they needed a little bit of training about that, because otherwise they'd have like the camera like skewed diagonally, or not getting a nice quality picture. But with a little bit of training, they were fine. So that's another option. And then you could also train the students to use an app which allows them to convert images into a PDF. So there's a few apps out there that let you do that. You could, for example, have a number of different images all put into the one PDF and then uploaded to your online platform where it can then be annotated. Or last but not least, using self-marking forms, which I know EP is absolutely fantastic for. So you could set a vocab test, or you could set a listening comprehension activity, and it's all self-marked for you, which is just fantastic. And there we are. So that's a little bit of context about what's happening in the UK. I'm sure that's being reflected by lots of you as well, joining us from Australasia. So please do let us know in the chat. And now I'm going to hand over to Philippa, who's going to tell us all about how EP can address all these issues around assessment in the COVID safe or the pandemic situation we all find ourselves in at the moment. Over to you, Philippa. Thank you ever so much for doing this as well.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. And thank you very much for that introduction. And it's I've just seen someone's put in the Q&A, Mary, who's based in New Zealand, like I am, that, we feel so lucky that we're in New Zealand right now and, we're not having to deal with all these challenges, because it really is such a crazy scenario for everyone out there at the moment. And we're all, our hearts are with you and we're thinking of you all. And I know there are some countries where you're back at school and facing all these challenges, but also some countries are still fully in lockdown, which is just crazy to think that you've been in lockdown pretty much for the whole year. So what we're hoping to do in the session today is look at how you can use the assessment side of EP to support all of those situations. So whether you're in New Zealand and running, or parts of Australia as well, and running pretty much normal classrooms now, hopefully this will help you as well, but also to the people who are fully still in lockdown or back in the classroom and with all these limitations, or in kind of like a blended learning model. Hopefully all the things that we discuss in this session will be useful. For those of you who I haven't met before, I'll just introduce myself really quickly. My name is Philippa and I'm the Global Head of Languages here at EP. I'm based in Dunedin in New Zealand. So for those of you who don't know New Zealand, we're down the bottom of the South Island, and that's actually where our EP HQ is based, but we have staff in many countries around the world now. So it's wonderful to have you here. We've got people from literally all around the world with us, so it's absolutely amazing to have such a diverse range of countries represented in the session. And what we're going to cover in the session from here, sort of looking at how EP can support assessment, we'll give a brief overview of what is EP languages for those of you who are unaware, but that will be very, very brief. We're then going to look at what pre-built assessment tasks we have available, and then we will look at how to set an assessment task on EP. Then looking at what security options we offer for running online assessment, how to monitor and mark assessment tasks, how to use and access the data from an assessment and even compare data between assessments. We'll look at how our targeted remediation works, and then how to create your own assessment tasks. We're not going to go into a huge amount of detail about, content creation. We're just going to cover a few sort of basic content creation tips. But if you are interested in exploring content creation a bit more, then I suggest you join another webinar at a later date looking at content creation in more detail. So that seems like a lot of things to cover, but I think it's all, I think we'll get through it quite quickly. And I've also at the end got a video of one of our amazing teachers based in Queensland talking about how she uses the assessment side of our platform in her classroom. So I think it would be great to hear, how other teachers are using it, what they're doing, and it's just for me, I find it really powerful to get teachers sharing what they're doing with the platform. So hopefully everyone will take something away from the session. If you are new to EP, you can and you don't have a teacher account, you can sign up for a free teacher account. I've put the link up there and I'll leave that sitting there throughout the session. You should be able to click on that and it will take you to a registration page. So please feel free to click on that and set up a free teacher account. And if you are new, I would suggest sort of watching a sort of getting started with the EP session as well, because the assessment side of things, although it's quite straightforward, it's good to sort of have a general understanding of the EP platform too. So I'd recommend send me an email after this and I can set you up with a Getting Started an EP webinar to watch on demand. So that's my introduction. You will receive a recording of this within 24 hours as well. So if you miss anything and you want to re-watch any parts of it, the details for that will be emailed to you. And like Joe said, please do ask any questions in the Q&A. We've got our wonderful Kelly with us answering questions as well. So, and I can see there's people in the group chat too, so that's wonderful. So without any further intro from me, I'm going to get straight into it, and I'm going to go into screen share mode now. And I think what I'm going to do is turn off my camera, because I think then you get a bigger picture of the screen share of the EP screen, so you can see it more clearly. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is just a little bit of tiny background about what EP Languages is, for those of you who have never come across it before. So basically, we're an online learning platform. We actually cover all the core subjects as well, so English, maths, science, humanities, and of course languages. And we actually started out as a language learning platform over 10 years ago. It started out with a couple of guys at school in Auckland, and they created a platform for helping to learn their Japanese vocabulary, and they ended up founding EP as a company, and it really started out as a language learning platform with just vocabulary. Then they gradually added in other subjects, and over the last 5 or 6 years since I've been with EP, our aim has really been to transform it from a vocabulary learning platform to a full online learning platform for languages, with everything you could possibly need. Listening comprehension, reading comprehension, writing, speaking, grammar, vocab, and etc. So I'm going to start out in the content library. So this, where we are now, is our control panel. This is where you arrive when you log into the platform. I'm going to start in our content library, and then when you come into the content library, you see the list of subjects down the left-hand side, and you pick your language, and then you'll see there's our featured content area, and this is where we have all of our core content. So we've got 4 different levels: getting started, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Very rough correlation of where this, obviously with people from all around the world, the levels are all different, but getting started is designed for sort of mid to late primary or very beginner secondary, depending on how much time students have allocated. Beginner is for early secondary, intermediate for mid-secondary, and advanced for senior secondary. And within these, we have topic-based units, and our topic-based units have got listening, reading, writing, speaking lessons, introduction lessons, grammar lessons, and lots of material lessons that you can assign to your classes. So please, if you haven't explored these folders, we would encourage you to do so. Sort of focusing more on the assessment side of things now. So to start out, in terms of what we have as pre-built assessment tasks. So these are tasks that you can use just straight from the content library. You can assign them to your students. They're ready to go and act as an assessment straight away without you needing to do anything. So at our getting started and beginner level, for the main languages that we sort of develop content for, so that's French, German, Spanish, Italian, Chinese, Japanese, and we're also Arabic as well now, in Māori and Indonesian. We have assessment tasks. So if you go into Getting Started or Beginner and then click on the unit, you'll see we've got this assessments folder. And you'll find in here some pre-built assessment tasks that you can use alongside our units. So they cover all of the same language that the units do, but they're different questions, well, as different as they can get at really beginner level topics. And so they start out with some vocab questions, some listening comprehension questions, with different sort of question types, some reading comprehension questions, and then some writing questions. And at beginner level, we have a completely automatically marked version. So that means you don't have to do any marking, which is hugely appealing. I know for me, when I think I forgot to say at the start, I was a French teacher for 10 years before joining EP. I know I used to find, as we all do, marking pretty tedious, especially at those beginner level classes where you've got huge numbers and you've got all those sort of multi-choice questions to ask, which could be automated. Why not? So these are fully auto-marked assessments at beginner and getting started level. At beginner level, we also have a manually marked version, which still has a lot of automatically marked questions in it, but it also has a few where the students need to write in the target language, and those you'll need to go in and mark yourself, but it's actually very easy to do that, and I'm going to show you that a little bit later. And at beginner level 2, we've actually got a speaking assessment assessment set out for each of the units as well. So you can go in, and it's just the students go in and got some simple speaking tasks to complete as well. You will need to mark those yourself too, though. The system won't mark the speaking assessments. So those pre-built unit assessments are there for the getting started level and beginner level. And they can be an end of unit test. They could be, you could use them as a pre-test and a post-test, or they can be used really at any point where you need to gather data on student achievement. And when we watch the video at the end of the session from the teacher I mentioned in Queensland, she talks about how her school's using them in really interesting ways. So that will be great to hear that at the end. In terms of other pre-built assessment tasks, we also down the bottom in this EP content area have a folder called formative assessments. And this is a series of tests, assessment tasks which are based on the whole level. So we've got one for getting started, one for beginner, and one for intermediate. And essentially you can use this as a diagnostic test. It might be at the beginning of a year, the beginning of a term, the beginning of a semester, or really at any point when you want to see where your students are at. And it could also be an end of term or an end of year exam as well. And what these are is it's assessing all the topics from a particular level, and you've got a few vocab questions and a few comprehension questions on each of the topics. So it's pretty straightforward. There's not lots of questions on each topic. It's just an overview of each topic. So it's great for getting a snapshot of where students are at. And I know many teachers have used these at various stages in their year, basically when at any stage where they need to gather data. But this can be a really useful kind of diagnostic at the start of a period of learning as well, and if you want to sort of see which level your students are at in terms of our levels. So those are our formative assessments. So those are our pre-built assessment tasks that we have available, but there are lots of other ways you can use our existing content, so our existing Smart Lesson content, as assessments as well. So in terms of how you set up an assessment on EP, what you do, so you go to the assessment task. So there's actually a couple of pathways for doing this. I'm going to start by showing you the pathway in the content library because that's where we're here, but then I'll jump out and show you the other way you can do it after. So what you do is you choose the assessment task that you want to set. So for example, if I'm doing my getting started and we're doing family, so this is very, very basic level, I go to the assessment folder. I've got my getting started assessment there, Unit 7 family. All I need to do, you can preview it first and you can check that you're happy with the questions in it. So you can have a quick look at that, but it will be based on the language that's in the unit. So if your students have completed the unit already, there shouldn't be any words in there that they're unfamiliar with, that they're not familiar with. And all you do is click on Assess, this green Assess button, and then it comes up with our assessment manager. And in this area, you first of all can pick the class that you're wanting to assign it to. And over on the right-hand side, you can actually differentiate. So you can click to assign to specific students, and you can untick any students that you don't want to assign it to. And so that's great for differentiation. So you might actually have, if it's a beginner level class, you could set some students the beginner level assessment and some students the getting started assessment, because we do have quite a lot of topic overlap for that exact scenario where students are kind of coming in with different levels of background. You could also have maybe a student who's got specific learning needs that has to have different assessment task or whatever it might be. So it's really easy to differentiate there. We then move on, and it's in this what section, it's already selected that assessment task because we've chosen that already. So that's great. You can rename it if you want. You can just delete the name that's automatically assigned to it and rename it. You can even add in some instructions for your students there if you want to. Then we've got the when section, and this is where you can choose the dates for the assessment. Now, these assessment tasks can be done in lots of different ways. So they can be done in the classroom at a specific time, in which case you would set the date for the specific day when you wanted it to happen. So say we wanted it to happen on Friday and be finished also on Friday as well. Then you can set the time prep period. So say you've got your class from 9 till 10, you can then set the time in there, and then they would just have the assessment open during that window. So you wouldn't, it would only come up on their end, on the student's end, during that time period. So even if you set it up in advance, the students will only see it when you set it to start. So that's how you can set the date. So it can happen in the classroom, or else it can happen from home. So you might, if it's if you're back on campus learning, then you could be running your normal classes in the classroom and then get the students to do their assessment at home. Or obviously, if they're fully remote, then they would be doing it at home anyway. So these assessments can take place at anywhere basically, as long as the students have got a device and an internet connection. Just one side note, we did have a question about this in our session earlier. Unfortunately, at the moment, assessments don't work on a phone, but they do work on all other devices. So desktop, laptop, iPad, and if you are using them on an iPad, through the iPad app, but unfortunately not on a mobile phone. Hopefully that's something that will be able to happen in the future. Then in terms of the assessment conditions, now this is where we've got some quite good security options that really help to secure that online environment, so the students can't cheat or go into Google Translate and that kind of thing, and you can actually monitor what they're up to. So you can choose how long you want them to have to complete the assessment, and you can also choose to pause the timer if a student leaves the assessment and comes back. If you want to, you can also choose to have no time limit. You can choose for a student to have a single attempt or allow multiple attempts, depending on what the assessment's for. If it's and you'll see the teacher, Amanda, who speaks a bit later in the video, she talks about allowing the students to do it several times to really to get a great result at the end. Then we've got these security settings, so you can require students to enter an access code to start the test if we tick that box. And what that means is the students won't be able to open the test until they've entered the access code. And so if you're in the classroom, you could put the access code on the board. If you're not in the classroom, you could share it on your learning management system. You could email it to the students, whichever way of communication works for you. We then have what we call full screen monitoring mode. And what happens with this is a really great solution to sort of, to help prevent students from just accessing Google Translate or some other online tool might be assisting them, is what happens if you select full screen monitoring mode is when the students enter the assessment, it will take them into a full screen. And if they try and get out of that, they get a big warning saying you're exiting full screen monitoring mode, your teacher's going to be alerted. And you can actually monitor that in real time. So whether the students are in front of you in the classroom or working from home, you can actually monitor what they're doing. And so what I'm going to do is actually jump out of screen share for a second and show you a video of what it looks like using full screen monitoring mode first from the student's perspective and then from the teacher perspective. It's a very short video. There's no sound, and I'll just show you quickly now, just so you can kind of get a feel for what it's like. So bear with me while I just get the video started. It might just take a couple of seconds to start. Here we go. So it should be starting now. So you can see this shows the students starting the assessment. They're now starting to complete the questions, and then they will go out of the full screen and they're getting that warning, that big red warning. Now this flips over to the teacher perspective and you can see the monitoring that's happening there. So that actually gives you a live feed of what the students are up to on their screen. So that's that shows you both both sides of the assessment monitoring. So I'll go back into screen share now, and hopefully in a couple of seconds we'll be back to the EP screen. So then we've got the results section of setting it up. So what you can click on here is that this allows you to sort of pick a few different options. The assessment task we have set here is fully automatically marked, so it states that, so you can see that, but you can tick this box to withhold student results until you choose to release them, which just means you can have a look at the results before the students see their result. If you don't tick that box, what happens is the students will be told that for an automatically marked assessment, the students will be told their results straight away. So it kind of just depends on how you feel about that, what the purpose of the assessment is, and that kind of thing, so you can make a call there on which option you prefer. We then have this targeted remediation setting. Now this is a really awesome addition to our assessment platform, and what happens is that the default setting means that when the students complete the assessment task, it will mark it, and then they will be automatically assigned work based on their areas where they need more assistance. So for example, in this family test, if they've shown that they are struggling a little bit with the listening, it will assign them automatically a listening lesson. But it depends on the test and what's in it as to what extra tasks will be assigned to them. So that's called targeted remediation, and what it does is it will set a task for the students following the assessment, and then each student will have their own learning pathway set up. So it's automatically set up in the assessment, but you can choose to manually review the recommendations before assigning them if you want to, or you can just have them automatically set straight away without reviewing them before they get assigned. So that's the targeted remediation, and it does really help to sort of personalize the learning pathways for the students. Then we've got some optional settings. So there's some email settings there about completion summaries. You can choose to email the students' parents if we've got the parents' email addresses set up, which is possible to do, and have various email reports sent to you, and you can also choose to email the students. So there's a few different email settings in there. And then finally, you just click on Set Assessment, and you see then it pops up here. And if we go back to our home page, then we can, to go back to the assessment that we've just set, we just click on that assessment button, and you can see it comes up with a panel here with that assessment task that we've just set. And this is where you can go back and refer back to it, and it's where eventually you'll be able to see the marking and the analysis. But because no students have completed this yet, there's no sort of marking to see. So in terms of what it does look like when the students have completed it is, and I'm going to show you a sample report because no students have actually completed this one yet. So and you can actually access the sample report if you want to have a look at how it works as well. You just click here on sample report. What happens when you set an assessment and the students have completed it is you get an overall summary of how they've gone. So this just shows the general percentages for each, how many students got each of the percentage ranges there. But then what's more useful is you have a breakdown of each student. You have their overall percentage, their score, the time spent on the assessment, and then you've got a breakdown of the results for each unit in the assessment, or in this case it's each unit, but depending on the assessment it might be per skill, so it could be listening, reading, writing, speaking, or it could be per subtopic and that kind of thing. So that gives a breakdown of the different results, and you can actually print the student's assessment as well if you need a paper copy. What happens there is it will email you a PDF of the assessment task. So that's a really useful analysis there. We also get a breakdown here of the recommendations from the targeted remediation, so you can delve into that and see which students have been set which tasks. And then you get a per question breakdown as well, where you can see who's made, how students have gone on an individual question level. Something else that you can do within the assessments, and I'm actually going to go into a previous assessment task that I've set before to show you this, is you can actually compare between assessments. So, for example, this one here, this elementary Unit 1 assessment pre-test and post-test, this is one I set ages ago, and I think Joe mentioned this in the group chat. These are all just sample students. They're not real students' work that I'm showing you, so don't worry. There's no privacy being breached here. So what happens is we've got our analysis here, and we get that summary that we saw before, but I can also compare this to the post-test marks. So if I go up to the top and click on compare results, and I find the same post-test that I've set, you can see the improvement over time. This is great if you've got to sort of show how the students have progressed. You've got to show the learning that's taken place. Great if you've got to report on like value added and how students have progressed throughout the year and that kind of thing. I mean, you can do a pre-test and a post-test over a unit, over a term, over a year, whatever period you need to do it. And I know Amanda in the video later talks about doing this as well, and she just messaged me when she sent the video and said she's just so excited to set the post-test at the end of the year again and get that data and compare it. So it's a really helpful feature, especially for reporting reporting to management, and or for showing parents. You know, you can say, well, hey, look how they've improved, and you can actually get a breakdown of individual students and how they've improved in the pre-test and the post-test. So that's the sort of analysis of the results that's available. So it's, as you can see, it's some pretty great data that you can access. So good for report writing, and you don't need to kind of manually mark any of it, especially at this beginner level. If it's higher level and you've got longer answers, you will need to go in and mark them, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. But you'll still get, if the assessment has been set up correctly, you'll still be able to get the breakdown of the results once it's been marked and transfer that over to reports and parent-teacher interviews and that kind of thing. So that's the analysis side of things. In terms of the marking, I may as well jump into that now as well. I'll show you another. I need to jump into another example to show you how the marking works, but it is actually very, very easy. And it saves taking home, piles of papers. Even if you do have to go in and grade them online, it saves taking home those piles of papers. So I'm just finding the example to show you. I think it's this one here. So what happens if there's an assessment that requires marking is you just click on the assessment and you go to the marking tab. And it comes up, this has just got one student who's done this. This is, once again, it's a sample one. It's not real student work. And you just click on Mark Assessment. It comes up with the different questions down the side that need marking. And so you can see the student answer there. You can then mark it over on the right-hand side. So you can either mark it right or wrong, or you can even give partial marking there, so give it a 0.5, and you can write a comment for each question. So you can see there's a next question, you can give it, you can say, yes, that's correct, and then you can go in and write a comment down the bottom here. So you can see super easy and quick to mark, and it really takes away any of those issues that Joe talked about at the start with, not having to wear gloves when you're marking and that kind of thing. None of that. You can just mark it straight on your device. And even for people who aren't needing to worry about those various restrictions, it just saves, like I said, saves all that paper marking. I told the story in the session this morning, which kind of made me giggle a little bit. I remember having an HOD at my very first teaching job, and she was a lovely, lovely lady. And she also taught English, and she had a box of English exam papers to take home and mark, and she put them on the roof of her car, which is something I would do, leave things on the roof of my car all the time, and drove off, and all the papers just kind of blew off the car. So you can imagine the chaos that would cause and the stress that would cause. So yes, none of that, no need to worry about carting around those paper tests to mark. You can do it all straight into here, and it is a very quick process to go in here and do that. And this would work well. I'm going to show you in a second how to set up like writing and speaking assessments, and it works in exactly the same way. So if you've got the students writing a paragraph or an essay-based answer, it works in exactly the same way. You view what they've written here, and you give the score over on the right-hand side, and you can actually set them to be worth out of 5 or 10 or 20 marks, and it would just come up here with how many marks you've allocated to them. So that's the marking side of things. So what we've looked at so far, we've looked at how you can set an assessment from the content library, and we've looked at how to get the analysis and how to mark it. What we're going to do now is look at the different options. So we've looked at pre-built assessments, but we've also got the option of creating your own assessment task, but also what we call a quick test. So I'm going to go back in, so I'm going to go into the assessment section through the control panel again, and what I'm going to do now is we looked at setting an assessment through the content library. That was the first pathway that we used. I'm going to now do it through the assessment portal, and all you need to do is click on Assign Assessment, and you can see it comes up with these 3 different options. So we talked already about pre-built assessments, but I didn't mention quick tests. So a quick test, if I click on this one, this comes up with exactly the same interface. It's our assessment manager. I won't talk through all of these headings again because we've already covered those, but the difference here is when you click on the What section, this brings up the whole content library, and you can actually set an assessment based on any of our lessons that we've got available. So you can go in and say you've done a couple of units and you want to do a test based on those, or just one unit. You can click on the unit, you can jump in and you can go into the course material and you can select a large pool of lessons to base the quick test on. So, and you don't have to have all of that selected. You can unselect specific parts. So you might just want it to be the listening, reading and writing, and then you would just go confirm selection, and that makes a pool. See, it says here you've got 90 questions, so it's essentially a question bank, and you can choose how many of those questions you want your students to answer. So say if I put in 20 here, so that's another benefit of this is that you sorry, I'm getting my words muddled now. When this happens, each student actually gets a unique assessment task. So they have the same pool of questions available, but they'll get a randomized selection of those questions. So that's another great option for when you do have students doing it remotely and you don't want them to cheat. They can't ring each other up and say, oh, what have you got for question 2? Because each of them is going to have a different question too. So that's and I know many teachers mentioned and earlier in the year during lockdown that they enjoyed this feature because it did mean that they had those sort of unique assessments. So that's what a quick test is. So it's actually being able to set a test based on any of the lessons that are in the content library. All the other features are exactly the same. So all the monitoring, the analysis, it's exactly the same as what we've seen already. So that's a quick test. So the last option there was creating your own assessment task. So if we click on this option, this actually takes us through to our content creation tools. And once again, you can also do this through the content library in exactly the same way. And what you can do here is basically create your assessment task from scratch. So you might have a paper-based assessment or an assessment that you do normally on your computer, and you can actually convert that to an EP assessment really, really easily. And many, many teachers have been doing this, especially this year with all the issues that we've had this year. And many teachers have become converts, I think, to using the assessment platform because of COVID. But now even many schools in Australia and New Zealand who've gone back to on-campus learning are still using this tool because it's so much easier and it saves so much time with marking. So in terms of how you create your own tasks, and like I said at the start, I'm not going to go into great detail on all the little bits and pieces of content creation, and I'm not going to show you all the different question types, but I'm just going to show you a few of the basics, and then if you are interested in learning more, let me know and we can send out, we'll let you know when our next content creation webinar is coming up. So I'm going to show you how you can bring in either a listening text, a reading text, and put some basic multi-choice comprehension questions or long answer questions with it. And I'm also going to show you how you can do a writing sort of more essay style question or a speaking question. But there are many other question types you can create, which we could look at in another session. So all you need to do is add in, there are templates here that you can use, but I actually prefer the blank option. And if I click on there, it comes up with this blank canvas area, and all you need to do is drag components over from the left-hand side. So we always start out with a text box where you can put the instructions. So say we were looking at a simple listening comprehension, we would just say, listen to this text and answer the questions or the question that follows. And you can also put your instructions in the target language. You can then, the text box works like a normal document, so you can, excuse me, you can change the heading style, you can change the color, you can make it bold or italics, you can do what you like with that formatting. And then all you need to do is drag over the audio icon from the left-hand side, and you can either upload an audio or you can record your voice into the system directly. Now, if it's a long listening passage, I would recommend uploading it and recording it before you upload it to EP outside of your computer. You don't have to, but I just think just in case you make a mistake or you know it's easier to do that outside. Or if it's just a quick one, you can just record your voice straight into EP, which is super easy and quick. So if we go for uploading an audio, all you do is choose the file from your computer. It's got to be an MP3 or a WAV file for it to work. Then click on upload. It does sometimes take a few minutes to upload depending on the size of the file. And then once it's uploaded, you can actually choose to limit the number of playback. So there's the default is that they can play it as many times as they want to, but if you can just put a number in there, and I think that's especially useful for an assessment task, and you can also take away the ability to pause it if you want. Then you click on done, and you can see you've got the listening file in the question. Then you just add in your question here. So for example, question 1, what did Joe, sorry Joe, I did this to you this morning as well, it's just the first question that came to my mind, what did Joe eat for breakfast? And then to add in a quick sort of easy multi-choice question, all you do is drag over the multi-choice icon and you add in your options. So toast, cereal, fruit, and you can just keep adding options there by clicking on the add option box, yogurt. And you can actually even put images in here. So I know many exam styles have got multi-choice questions with images rather than words. So instead of putting the word in there, you can delete that and you can actually put an image in that box. You can choose from our extensive media gallery and just search cereal and pop that in there. It's probably going to be quite big, so you can change the size. So all we would need to do is change the size down here, and that's probably still a lot way too big, so to fit in the multi-choice would probably make it about 100. So then you can actually have the multi-choice with images as well. So I'm going to just change that, take that out because it would look silly if you've got words and images together. But if we click on done, then you can see that's what the question looks like. So super quick and easy to make. What you do need to do when you're editing content on EP is just put in a few extra spaces, because otherwise it gets very cramped together. So I'm just going to put a space here, and then to put a space between two components, you just drag over an extra text box, and that just adds a bit of extra spacing. And then if we save that question and go out of the area, you can see that gives us a bit of a preview there, and that's what the students would see, and they would just answer that. So really easy to make like a quick listening comprehension. I'll show you now a reading comprehension, and this time I'm going to put a long answer question with it, but you can obviously mix and match, so you can have a listening question with a long answer, a reading question with a multi-choice. Any combination of this is possible. So we'll click on add question again, going to click on that blank slide and drag over instructions. So this time we'd say read this text and answer the question that follows. And you can have a text, a listening or a reading or a stimulus of some description with multiple questions, so you can have several questions after it on the same slide as well. So I'm going to highlight that and change my formatting, change my color. And then to do a reading text, there's a number of different options. So you can either just write in a text box, but some tips I've learned from the teachers using our platform is actually having the text as an image is quite good, because they can't copy and paste it, or as a PDF. So that means that they can't actually go out and copy and paste it into somewhere else where they can get a translation for it. So for example, you might have a written text, you might have one already that looks really nice, that's from an existing assessment task, or I'm actually just going to take a screenshot of a text I've got here, which is just a small reading comprehension text. So I'm just taking the screenshot as we speak. I'm going to drag the image icon over, and then I'm going to upload the image of the text that I just took a screenshot of. And this is not a particularly pretty looking text, so you could make it look a lot nicer. I'm going to click on upload, and there we've got the text in there. You can change the sizing, click on done, and you've got your text. And so that putting it in as an image makes it harder for the students to copy and paste. But you can do the PDF option, or if you've got a nice looking text somewhere, that's obviously going to be more attractive for the students. Then to make a long answer question, once again, we're just going to drag over the text box, and we'll put question 1, summarize what this person is going to do in their holiday. And unfortunately, this is not particularly, relevant right now because people aren't able to go many places. But this is, more sort of traditional topic that you might see in an exam somewhere. And then to make it a long answer question, you just drag over the long answer. I'll do that again. The long answer icon. Just going to delete that and do that again so you can see more clearly. So we get the long answer icon from over on the left-hand side, and we drag it over, and then it opens up the opportunity to put in a model answer if you want to. In a assessment task, the students won't actually see the model answer. You'll see that when you mark it as an option, but so you possibly don't need the model answer unless you want to put something there for the markers benefit. And then you can also put an answer expectation, so you can choose at least or between the number and then sentences, words, or paragraphs. So you could say you want them to write at least 3 sentences or at least 1 sentence, and then click on done, and there you've got your long answer writing comprehension. And of course you can make this all in the target language as well. So what I'll do is I'll just add a bit of extra space in there too. We can call this one reading comprehension, and say question, and then exit out of there. So there we've got our listening and our reading, and I just saw we didn't give the listening question a title, so you can actually go in and you can edit it again. So to edit it at any time, you can just go back and click on edit, and we can just put in here listening comprehension, and come back out again. So the other thing that's really cool within the assessment creation area is you can change the score for a particular question. So you can, so for example, if you want a question to be worth more than 1 point, you can just highlight it here and you can change the number of points. You can also add what we call analysis tags. So, and the benefit of this is that this helps to generate the data at the end. So the analysis report that we saw that had the results broken down into different sections, so listening, reading, writing, or different subtopics, that's because we've had analysis tags attached to them. So if you want to have your results sort of broken down in that analysis at the end, we just add in the tags here. So we would tag this one with listening. And then we go to the reading, and you could add the analysis tag and add in reading as the tag. And so that just means that you get that nice broken down analysis at the end, which is really great for reporting. I'm going to show you now how you can do a writing and a speaking question for speaking assessments, and written, like if you wanted to do a more essay style assessment. So all you need to do is we add in the question again, and click on that blank slide there. We put in our instructions in the text box. So, for example, for writing, write a paragraph describing wrong, your house in French or in German and Japanese, whichever language you are using. You change your formatting there, and then you drag over your long answer component. And the main thing here is that you just need to make sure you set the language. So we would want to set the language to the target language. So you want to make sure it's set on French there, which means that it will enable accents for the students. So there you've got your writing task, and you could switch that around to say, for example, you could make it describing an image. So write a paragraph describing this image, for example. And then you can choose an image from our media gallery. So you just drag over the image icon into the question, pick from media gallery, search for houses, and you can choose the image of your choice there, and you can just play around with the sizing a bit. And there you've sort of changed up the style of the question. What you can also do, so that's a writing question, and I'm just going to show you in the same slide just to save time. But obviously if you wanted separate writing and speaking questions, you'd need to do this in 2 different question spaces. You would put, instead of write, you'd write record yourself describing this image. And then instead of the long answer component, I'll just delete that one, we would add in our speaking component down the side here. So this audio recording component, I'm going to drag that one in, and you've got the option of a quick recording or an extended recording. I'm going to click on extended recording because that just allows a bit longer. And then the students will can record themselves describing the image. So that's really great for any kind of speaking question. So it could be record yourself talking about anything. You can also record a question and put the question in there and say record yourself, listen to this question and record your answer to it in the target language. So there's lots of different options there with the voice recorder. And essentially any of the kinds of questions you see in our speaking questions that we have pre-built, you can actually recreate yourselves really easily with these tools. But as I said, I don't want to sort of spend too long focusing on this as right now, because I know we've got limited time and there's a lot to sort of talk about in the context of assessments, but we'd be very happy to spend time with you. Either you could sign up for another webinar focusing more on this, or we can run a Zoom session with you going into it in more detail for you or your department, if that would be helpful. So we'll call this one speaking, and we can save the question. And if we jump out of here now, you can see once again we could change the points there. So you might make your speaking question worth 10 points or something. And then when you're finished, you just save the exam, give it a name. So Year 7 end of term exam, save it. And then you're ready to assign it. You can just click directly from here, click on that assess button. That takes you through to our assessment manager, which we've seen several times now, and voila, there you have your assessment task. So I definitely, if you're keen to explore this further, have a play. And I think once you start having a play in this area, you'll see it's very, very easy to just drag over those different elements and add the bits and pieces in. So I think that sort of summarizes the main things I was going to talk about. So I hope that everyone's been able to take something from this, and whether you're fully back in the classroom now or whether you're fully in remote learning, and I saw that Joanna was saying that they are now back in remote learning, which must be really full on for you guys, or if you're back in the classroom but with really strict restrictions, or if you're in a blended learning situation, hopefully everyone can take something away from this and see how they can use EP to kind of help them with their assessment tasks. I do have a video that I was going to play that I've mentioned a couple of times now, but maybe if there are any questions that Joe wanted to sort of bring up before we play the video, and then if people need to go, you're welcome to go, and then I'll play the video at the end for anyone who wants to stay and watch. It's about 6 minutes long, and it just talks about a teacher, like I said, using all of the features that I've talked about in the session today. So, but perhaps if we address any burning questions first, and then we can go into that video.
No problem. That was a fantastic job, Philippa. Brilliant stuff. It's amazing to see how all the different ways in which EP can help with assessment. It's absolutely brilliant, not just for reading and writing, but all 4 skills. I love it. So we've got, Kelly did a fantastic job as well in answering all the questions, but we've got a couple from Deanna at the end, which is as follows. Is there a way to have students get the same questions if you only choose a certain number? And then in addition to that, also, is there a way to print assessments for students that forget their devices or they have a flat battery?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll talk about the printing first. So yes, you can print an assessment. Our platform's not designed for printing, so it doesn't end up being very pretty, if that makes sense. Like it's not a neat one-page assessment task just because it's not the way it's been set up. But to print an assessment task, what you can do, I'll go back into screen share, is so say we go look at this assessment task that I just set today, and I click on it, and you've got the details there. You've got the getting started page. You can preview the assessment questions, and that comes up with the preview. Oh, actually, I thought the preview is where the print is. The printing, to be honest, it's not something I've done a lot of on here. I'm just looking where the printing session. I thought, here is it. I thought it was in the section here, but there is a space somewhere where you can print it. I've lost it where it's gone, but I'll follow up on that, and I can send you an email with that. But there is an area where you can print the assessment task. But what it does is it will send you a PDF, and then you can print that from the PDF. But like I said, it's not particularly pretty. But I'll follow up, Deanna, and with an email just to show you the steps. And it's just disappeared from where I thought it was. Sometimes things do move around a little bit. In terms of this other question, is there a way to have students get the same questions if you only choose a certain number? With the quick test, no. It is randomized, unfortunately, but what you can do, there is a way around that. You could create an assessment task based on our questions. So if we go back into that create your own assessment, where we were before, this would be a way you can use our content and have the same assessment task, choose a subject, and instead of actually creating the slides like we did, we can go add existing questions into here. You can choose where you want to add the questions from, and you go into the course material. So say you want to get some listening questions, and we can just choose the ones that we want. Excuse me. And then you can see that brings up the assessment. So thanks. So it brings up you've got that would make an assessment task that's exactly the same for your students, like a quick test, but you're bringing in all the questions into the assessment creation area, if that makes sense. So that would be a way around that. But if you're using the quick test function, unfortunately, there's no way of making sure everyone has the same one.
Awesome. We've got a quick little question in the group chat from Venerino, which is, what year or grade would you use the getting started level?
Great question. So getting started, I would use at sort of mid-level primary to early secondary, depending on the level. As long as students can read in English, then they should be able to use getting started. So I've got a 7-year-old daughter who's been at school for a couple of years. She's fine with the getting started course. I've got a 6-year-old daughter who's only been at school for a year. She would struggle because her reading's not good enough and she doesn't. Yeah, so I'd say that sort of 3rd year primary school is probably ideal, as long as they've got sort of a reasonable reading ability in English. It isn't ideal for sort of year 1, 2s. Our system's not set up for students of that age, I'd say, but anywhere from about year 3. Then that's absolutely fine. It can also be used for beginner level secondary. I know lots of schools in Australia and New Zealand don't have very much time allocated for languages at that beginner secondary level as well. So if you don't have much time allocated at that level, getting started is great too. But like I said, you can also use a bit of a mix of the getting started and beginner.
Fantastic. We've got a question here. Oh, sorry. Over to you.
You know, I think it's the same question that I've just spotted as well about does EP work for tutoring or is it only for schools?
Yeah.
Is that the question you were? Yeah, so absolutely. Definitely works for tutoring as well. So what we would do is we'd set you up as a teacher in the system, and then we'd set your students up with accounts and allocate them to you. So just if you would like to maybe just email me and I can give you all the information about that. It works essentially in the same way as it would for a school, so absolutely fine to set up as a tutor, no problem.
Fantastic. Should we just share your email address in the chat? Is that okay?
Yeah, I think you're welcome to do that. I think on the screen you guys should all have access to be able to email me through there as well. So, but Joe that would be fine to pop it in the chat as well, just in case people don't have that. What I might do now is show you the video, but if you do have to go, that's absolutely fine. I understand that everyone's got busy lives, but for people who'd like to stick around, I'll show you the video, and you're welcome to also, while the video is playing, ask any questions in the chat and I can type the answer to them. If you do have to go, thank you so much for joining us. You are able to download a certificate for attending the session. There's a certificate icon there that you can click on to get the certificate, and you will receive the recording tomorrow. And also, if you are new to EP, I've got that link up for accessing an account. So I'm going to play that video now, but if you do need to leave, that's absolutely fine. So thank you so much for joining us.
Ciao a tutti! My name's Amanda Stein. I'm an Italian teacher and the Italian coordinator at Kelvin Grove State College. We're a large independent state school in Brisbane in Queensland, Australia. I've been teaching Italian for 10 years and I've been using Education Perfect for the entire time. It's been wonderful to see the improvements that have been made with the content and especially the assessment features. So I wanted to tell you a bit about how I use it and how our team for Italian uses it at Kelvin Grove State College. We do Italian from Year 2 to Year 12 at KG, and we use Education Perfect from Year 4 upwards. So an example of how we use it with our 4 and 5 students is we use the already built content from Education Perfect, their languages in action sections. We assign those tasks to the students in Year 4 and 5, and we set them up with what we call practice assessments at the end of every term. And we give the students 4 or 5 goes at it in class. We only have half an hour lesson, so sometimes it can be tricky. If the students don't get it complete in class for any reason, technology is not working, etc., or they come in late, they can also do that at home. What we generally see is the students will have a go at the assessment in class, and then they'll go home and have another go at home, because we let them know that we'll choose the best of their 5 goes. We also assign the students recommended tasks. So if they don't get above a certain percentage, I like to set it nice and high. So if the students don't get above 90%, what EP will do is we'll assign them recommended tasks. The students do their assessment, see what their recommended tasks are, do some of their recommended tasks, then they can go back in and have another try. And what we're seeing is that students will go home and have another try of their assessment, whereas traditionally paper, they're not going to take it home, they're not going to have another go, you're not going to be able to tell them which sections they should be focusing on automatically for a cohort of up to 200 students. So it's a way that we can show that the students can achieve success, and it's how the students are continually striving to improve that's really impressing us at the moment. We'll also, over time, at the end of Term 4, be able to compare their Term 1, 2, 3 results with their Term 4. So seeing how they've progressed. With our Year 6 cohort, what we've done is, again, we've assigned them the language in action tasks in the beginning, in the elementary section. We normally assign them, say, 50 questions from a bank of, I think it's over 1,200 questions on all those topics that they've been able to work on throughout the year. And again, they're given a couple of goes so that they can improve their results using the recommended tasks. We can withhold the results, or we can release them straight away to let the students know how they've gone. There's no issues with copying or cheating, because all of the students are given a different test in the Year 4, 5, 6 level. With the Year 6s as well, we also do speaking assessments on EP, which is great because we can practice in class and then the kids can go home and record their answers, and we can listen to them individually when we have a chance to. If the kids need to resubmit, it's very easy to go in and press require resubmitting, and the students then get an alert so that they can go in and do that. For our Year 7 cohort, we weren't quite as clever with using the Education Perfect content. What we actually did was we went in and built all of our own assessments based on the paper assessments that we used in the past. We know now how to use all the ins and outs of the assessment building features and functions that EP have, which has been really wonderful. It's been very intuitive, but now we're really, really excited because with the Languages in Action beginner section, there's all assessments there ready for us. So next year, we're going to be assigning those to our 7 and 8 classes, and they'll be doing it's all built up of vocabulary, listening, reading and writing, and then we're thinking about adding a speaking component to that too. I can't wait to see how the kids improve over the year, and with that compare function that EP has, it's also going to be great if you're a teacher who's looking at the HAT or lead teacher, so the highly accomplished teacher process. This is where you'd have excellent evidence to be able to use towards that process potentially. The other area where we did use EP assessments was for year 10. Because of COVID this year, we created our assessments, our paper assessments, online, and one of the things that we did was, instead of having just the text available, we took a photo image, inserted that into the content so the kids couldn't copy and paste and then put it into Translator. Another great feature is the full screen mode. So although you'll be monitoring students in the class, if they were at home doing that assessment, you click on the full screen mode and you can actually see whether the students have spent their entire assessment time on the actual assessment or been flipping between screens, let's say. So it worked really, really well. And if we need to in the future, we'll definitely be doing our assessment tasks that way. It's really quick and easy to be able to go in and change any assessment. If you notice that the kids have, say, the word order or spelling is a little bit off to exactly how it should be, it's easy for the teacher to be able to go in and change it, check it, no issues whatsoever. And I love that if we notice any little things that aren't quite right in the assessments, there's so many things to test, is that the kids take a screenshot of it, they email it to me, and I send that feedback onto EP, and within 24 to 48 hours, that's already fixed up. So if you're wanting to modernise how you do assessments, EP has got it all laid out for you. Make sure you contact the team to find out more, because it's going to save you time, you get invaluable data, and it's going to really help our kids progress through the learning of their languages.
Great. So that sort of brings us to the end of our session today. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Jo, for running another webinar with us. It's been wonderful to work with you. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you next time, and good luck everyone with the various challenges that everyone's facing, as well as on top of the sort of end of year tiredness. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if you've got any questions.
Fantastic. And thank you ever so much, Philippa, for such a fantastic job tonight. Great working with you as well. It's been a fantastic collaboration. And yeah, look forward to future possibilities as well. So good luck, everyone. Stay safe. And I'm sure you found the webinar fascinating. And we'll send out the recording in the next 24 hours as well. So you'll be able to catch up and watch it again and share it with your department. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everyone.